too. These are the days, oh yes, these are the days.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I am anti-public sleeping.
And I'm Jen, and I'm a big fan of a luxury public sleep. So let's talk about it. So, first off, I want to ask you about if you've had an exceptional public sleep in your life. Like, do you have any notable naps that you would like to share?
Well, I feel like as an anti-public sleeper, they're not that exciting because I have a particular need for a bed, and therefore my public sleeping is the one time when I was a university student and working in the summer for a bank in downtown Toronto and was taking the commuter train in and fell asleep on the train and woke up as it was pulling out of the main station and going to the train yard and having to press the emergency button and divert the train to another nearby station so that they could drop me off. So that's
I'm
pretty much my most exciting public nap
I'm
sleep.
pretty thrilled that you got to press the emergency button because that's something that I've never done.
Yeah,
And
and you almost don't want to, but that was an exciting time to press it. So,
definitely. Oh, you almost went to bed in the train yard. What a day.
almost. What a day for young Lisa to have experienced. It made me late for work, obviously. And then they did bring up a valid point, like, why didn't anyone wake me up? But I was curled into like a little ball. So that makes
People are
sense.
just far too polite to wake up public sleepers, it seems.
Yeah, I think
So
that's my only public sleep story.
as a public sleeping aficionado and big fan of a public snooze, I feel I have a couple of really good stories. So the first one I'm going to start with is a couple of years back, I was in Australia attending a conference, and I was there with a friend, and we had rented an Airbnb. The only drawback of this lovely Airbnb was that it had one set of house keys, which isn't a big deal because we were traveling around together, no problem. But after a night at the aquarium, the platypuses, the lots of wine, the casino, the cute boys, etc., she went home a bit earlier than I did. I got home and she was passed out cold, would not respond to a phone call, doorbell, me rattling around outside for love or for money. So my first thought was, I'm just going to stand on the top of this wheelie bin and pull my entire body weight fully over my head to get onto the first floor balcony, which is obviously something I'm unable to do. Like, I am not a Marvel character, superhuman strength person. Good references for things I know about Marvel and such. So then
Definitely.
I resigned myself to just like, this is it. I'm just going to sleep outside. So I just lay down in front of the door of this apartment building and slept there for several hours until someone came out of the building who was clearly like concerned and confused because it's like was quite a nice neighborhood. I don't think there's often people sleeping on the doorstep. So I kind of just like crawled into the building and curled up on the doormat outside of the apartment door and just slept like a stray cat for the rest of the night. So like that was definitely one public sleeping incident that I will never forget. Also an international one, which makes it even
Yeah,
cooler, I
that's
think. Key.
yeah. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting one.
But
That is and unfortunate because I feel like I would have been extra mad if I was like, but I have a bed, as opposed to like the times that you choose to be public sleeping or like miss a train or are on a
mhm.
train and fall asleep. So,
Well, the other point of pride I would say about this particular incident is as a personal value that I hold is that I must attend the first session after every conference dinner because it just seems to signal that you're really dedicated to the work. So, after spending the night sleeping on the doorstep, I got into the flat, had a 30-minute nap in my actual bed, and then went to the conference center to attend the first session of the day. So, I would say top marks in terms of, uh, that, napping outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, top marks in terms of nerd alerts.
Super nerd alert.
Super nerd alert.
That's my Marvel
Well, yeah, I
character.
guess that's yeah. I guess that like brings up the point that I just don't think we should be public sleeping. I not in a judgmental way because I think it's not necessarily a choice, but I feel like you get these like Victorian ideals of um
Civility
bodily functions it's like affront to your sensibilities, but yes, that is like your bodily functions are should stay inside and not outside, with obviously like the notable exceptions that like people give to someone sleeping on a train, like a commuter train or any train to be honest, and then or a
or
plane
airplanes, yeah.
or an airport or like lovers and having a picnic in the park. But even then, I don't think it's a positive thing. I think it's just an acceptable version of it. But like sleep is like, I guess like before Victorian times, Western culture probably maybe they had more of a liberal view about sleeping.
A sleep positive
Yeah, I think naps probably
perspective.
were taken for granted um, in how people function because it's like the idea that you went to bed when the sun went down and then you woke up really early and had a nap in the afternoon. But I don't know.
So I think that you've brought up a number of like key considerations when we're talking about public sleeping there. So the first is like why there's this stigma or moral taboo against public speaking. And that seems to have its roots way back in the 18th and 19th centuries, where it's very much this proper sensibilities of the civilized society saying that, the bodily functions such as blowing your nose or evacuating waste or sleeping should be undertaken in private places. So Norbert Elias, who's a sociologist from the 1930s, is solidly in the anti public sleeping camp, just like you, Lisa. And I think other historians
Good
talk
job
about that.
citing your sources.
Yes,
Yeah, citing
nerd
your
alert,
sources.
nerd alert.
That's key. Nerd alert.
Yeah.
Excellent work.
So so yeah, so this idea that we should be tidily managing our like bodily necessities behind closed doors and just like not make other people have to deal with them. So, but then
Yeah. And
the
then
other
I do think there's there's the other part of it that is just like it's obviously not a choice for some people. And that's where it gets more complicated. And like I was telling you about the government of the UK's advertisements being like, if your choice was sleeping outside, wouldn't you always choose a stranger's couch? Like, it's not a choice for people. And that's where it gets more complex. And you're like, although it's not, I don't know if that's like an affront to public sleeping. It's more of well, depending on how you look and the color of your skin and your gender and all of those things
Mhm.
affects the perceptions of the person public sleeping.
Yeah, absolutely agree that public speaking is not just this whimsical, romanticized, like napping in the
Mhm.
park or like hilarious anecdotes, because there is like a long history of indecency and vagrancy laws about people that are rough sleeping, is what they call it in the UK, or sleeping on the streets, and people that don't have the choice. So I think that's the main distinction, is like when it's a choice, it becomes a luxury. It becomes something that you choose to do. You choose to go spend a lovely afternoon in the park with your lover or your husband and have a leisurely lovely nap in the park. And that's very different from people that uh, are rough sleeping. And also this idea that these vagrancy laws exist to kind of sweep the poor and the people without privilege out of public view, so that we don't need to acknowledge or be confronted with the realities of those most socially disadvantaged. Yeah.
I do agree. I still think that like there is the idea of it's while it's acceptable, it's not like someone would be like, yeah, just definitely take a nap on the airport floor, or like, yeah, definitely just like, well, maybe I guess people would be like, oh, try to sleep on the plane, but I don't know. I still think there's like it's not like, oh, go to the park and take a nap on a sunny afternoon. It's like, well, if you're gonna take a nap, go lie on your couch. You
Mm.
strange man.
I I think that's true, but then I think there's another, like, interesting layer about privileging napping, and that is this emergence of an industry with napping pods in places like New York City,
Mm.
and also having these napping, places in airports and things like that, because a lot of people
Yeah, but
do
that
end up.
would argue that it's all because that's inside and like not public sleeping. So like that would
Mm.
almost put it back into the like, oh, well, this is a private thing sensibilities.
But if
Go
you can
inside and
afford
sleep.
it, but if you can
Yes,
afford to
yes.
pay for sleep, it's just like.
Yeah, but then it doesn't make it acceptable. So like if you're tired and it's like you could go to a nap pod and sleep in the nap pod or go sleep on the street. It's not like one or the other. It's like you don't sleep or you get to go to a nap pod.
That's true. That's
That's
true.
but I
That's
would be
true.
s-
That's true.
I would pay for a sleeping pod at an airport.
Oh my goodness, I would love to have more napping pods in my life.
Yeah.
Actually, my at the workplace in Sweden at Karolinska Institute that, I worked at for several months, had a napping room in the office, and it was literally my favorite thing. I would just, go there after lunch, have a 30-minute nap. It was just, like, the most delightful aspect of the office, and I really think that we should bring like this embrace of napping spaces into the corporate culture. That's really the campaign
Oh,
that I'm going to
agree.
lead forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Try to get
But
everyone out of public sleeping and get into their offices having a great nap.
well, this might be an
But
issue
it is a
post-pandemic. Just one more
yeah.
thought is that, so right now, for all the pluses and minuses, I do currently work approximately 3 steps from my bed, and the incidence of napping
Mm,
in my workday has increased astronomically since moving my workplace to my kitchen table. And I'm not quite sure how well I'm going to transition to being in an office without a napping space. Just maybe I will have to take up
yeah,
public sleeping during the workday, going to Hampstead Heath and having a nap, because I'm not sure I can do 8 hours in a row without napping. It's just them be the
I
facts.
mean, I think that's really fair. I think that's fair. I think we need to definitely push for more mid-afternoon sleeping breaks.
Yes, we are in
But it is a
kindergarten.
good when yeah, it is a good segue when you're talking about Sweden and how but like other cultures in the world are so different in how they view public sleeping. And so you think even, I mean, I can only think of like the most famous example of Japan, but I don't know if everyone follows the same like white European I ideal of like a private sleeping versus in your own home or wherever, but privately, as opposed to like other in public, and if that's acceptable. But in Japan, famously, they have drum roll for pronunciation.
Japanese word pronunciation time.
Oh, we're so good at pronouncing things.
Pronunciations.
Yeah. Okay, we'll call it Inamuri.
Mhm.
Inamuri.
Yeah,
Inamuri. Yeah.
say it with confidence.
With confidence, that is what we're calling it. And it's the concept of being present while asleep, um, I think actually has the distinction of just public sleeping and like passing out from exhaustion. I think it's actually more in tune with almost a daydreaming. But the idea is that like if you they they Japanese culture is a very hardworking culture, and you have to work long hours and be very hard. And so the idea that you could just fall asleep or pass out and daydream in a public space or in a meeting is acceptable because you're like, at least you're there and you're obviously working so hard that you just like fell asleep.
You're
And
demonstrating your commitment to the
yeah,
job.
and but when I was reading it, so I again cite your sources, a BBC article about it and how she was like, it's not like you could go into a meeting and be like, well, this is when I'm going to close my eyes and schedule it. And it's more of a, if you happen to fall asleep with a meeting that you don't really need to speak in, you have to be able to answer upon, like when they call upon you. Um, and that, yeah, so that being said, it is more attuned to daydreaming, I think, than to actually falling asleep. Although I guess, your eyes are closed and hypothetically you could. But I do like that it's more acceptable to be like, yeah, I'm exhausted. I have a very long day and all this stuff. And I'm gonna just take a quick nap. Just take
I
a quick
actually
nap.
wonder if it's more like the dad joke of when you catch your dad sleeping and he says, "I'm only just resting my eyes, I'm not asleep." My dad would
Yeah, maybe.
rest his eyes after dinner every single day of my childhood, so I think he was doing the in your sleeping.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah, just being
yeah.
present, being part of the family whilst resting his eyes.
Yeah, I'm into that. I think that's a solid dad joke. And then I think you get these like what the famous pictures, of all the Japanese businessmen falling asleep in the street because they rely so heavily on public transit in Japan, like especially in, the major cities. And so you get the idea that they were working so hard and so late, they missed their train, or maybe they were, out socializing, which is, another thing too, that they just have to sleep on the street or in the train station. And that's how you get all those like famous photos of Japanese businessmen just sleeping outside, um, which I think is kind of funny. The
Yeah.
You
I
have
love
to just
those
wait for your
photos.
train.
Love those photos, but also I would say that when I visited Japan a few years back, the train stations and the trains are sparkling clean. They are really, I would say, in terms of trains I would like to sleep on, Japan, absolutely. Singapore, amazingly clean trains. Those are like stunning. And I actually do want to put a plug in for the Sweden underground system because the Swedish one in Stockholm is actually also quite tidy. I think you could feel relatively comfortable, sitting and sleeping on those trains. The London underground? No,
Not
thank
so
you.
much.
No. No.
Yeah, I'm not that into sleeping on trains, but will bring up how pre-pandemic, the London Underground, of course, it's like a busy, busy underground. And then when the pandemic started and they had all the advertisements like, we are cleaning our trains nightly, and you're like, they weren't cleaning the trains nightly before? What are they talking about? You're like, I thought they always cleaned the trains.
I thought they would clean trains. It seems like something that would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
but
So for me, no train is a good place to sleep, but
I think this would be a great note to end on. We should list the places that we absolutely would not public sleep. You can go first. You have obviously said most trains. I say many trains I'd be happy to sleep on. The like rhythmic motions. That seems very soothing to
yeah.
me.
Um, Places I would not sleep. Well, you sent me a picture of a person sleeping surrounded by pigeons, and let me tell you, I have the most serious, passionate hate for pigeons. They are the rats of the sky, and I hate them so much, and they exist everywhere. I was I was in the Amazon on a jungle trek in the Bolivian jungle outside of Runabaque on like a trip, and you are seeing the most beautiful flora and fauna and hoping to see really cool animals. You're seeing macaws, you're seeing everything. And you look up in a tree and there's actual pigeons in the middle of the Amazon. Why? Why? And then you and I have gone to uh,
Tromso.
Tromso in Norway, which is 400 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. It's like the in the Arctic. There are seagulls like the size of small dogs, and we've been on like a whale watching tour and dog sledding. It is like the Arctic, and what also exists there? Pigeons. The worst. They're just the worst. So obviously strongly against public sleeping actually anywhere a pigeon is, so that therefore can't sleep anywhere in public.
That pretty much cancels out everywhere in the world. It is amazing that pigeons have adapted to the middle of the Amazon and the Arctic Circle, but do kind of support that, not ideal bedfellows for the
Yeah,
public
so I
sleeping.
mean, if you're supporting that, then maybe you can't public sleep anywhere because anywhere there's a pigeon, I can't do it.
I I feel like as long as there's not pigeons within, like,
Eyesight?
yeah, within my personal bubble sort of situation. Like, I need maybe a few feet around me that to be
Oh
comfortable.
no.
Um, this is probably the vainest um, r- place I wouldn't public sleep, and that's if there's a really hot guy nearby.
That's so vain, Jen.
I know.
You can't base
You
your public sleeping based on like if there's people around.
You can base it if there's pigeons around, so I can base it if there's, like, a really attractive dreamboat sitting nearby. I'm not gonna fall asleep. I might just
Well,
like
I was like, would you just not fall asleep because you'd be like, oh, I'm not tired anymore. Look at the dreamboat. Or is it like an actual, I would not sleep around that because I need to be
I
my most attractive self?
it might be a
I,
combination of both, but definitely I think that it would add some vim and vinegar to my day if I'm just like, "Oh, and look at this, like, dreamy man on the train sitting across from me reading a novel." I'd be like, "Oh, yes,
you're like,
please."
I must try to make on eye contact to be like, ooh, ooh. Do you see
Ooh.
me fluttering my eyelashes?
Yeah, yeah. So,
That is a perfect note to end on. I love that. I love that. That is your little asterisks to the public sleeping.
Yeah. See, even I have my limits. Even there are even places that I will not sleep. So, um,
Perfect.
so since this is our celebration of Public Sleeping Day, which I don't think we even mentioned is officially on February 28th, I thought we would also add just a rapid fire roundup of a few other things to add to your February. And this is actually maybe one for you, Lisa. It's also bird feeding month, so maybe you should find your favorite
Oh
pigeon.
God. Ugh.
It's
No.
February is also hot breakfast month and library lovers month. So, since we only have one more
Ah,
day of February left, maybe you can celebrate by feeding your pigeon some hot breakfast while reading them a book. Eh? Eh?
pass. Well, I did look up some famous people born or died on February 28th. Um, Not only is it's National Science Day in India and
Mm,
Teachers Day in Arab states, and some notable people who were born on February 28th was Bugsy Siegel. He is a very famous American mobster
mm,
from who like helped build Las Vegas. So pretty cool.
there you go.
Um, we have American physicist Leon Cooper, and is named, he found the Cooper pair, which is a pair of electrons bound together at low temperatures in a certain manner first described by him. Just
Well,
just so you know.
guys, it's
And
Cooper
then
Day.
it's
Cooper
Cooper
Day.
Day apparently. And
Ugh.
then some famous, oh, and Brian Jones, who is was famously the lead singer of the Rolling Stones, and he is part of the 27 Club, died at 27, famously from a
The
drug
day the
overdose.
music died?
Of
No.
course,
Yeah.
no.
Not the day the music died.
No,
Other Nope.
nope. Put
Different
strike
music
that.
facts.
Yeah, strike that. And yeah, he was born on February 28th, so that's some other good February 28th facts.
Well, happy February 28th. Let's go celebrate by sleeping or not sleeping in public and celebrating electrons joined together at low temperatures.
Uh,
Okay. I'll talk to you later, Lisa.
Bye!
Bye.
La la la